So recently, I received this email with this big, loud subject line, all caps, siren emoji, DLL hijacking vulnerability in dism.exe. It says, I recently discovered this vulnerability which allowed me to gain unauthorized remote access to a fully patched and updated Windows 11 machine. They go on to explain how they put this together, and they made some cool tooling, a little Python script to be able to streamline it, and they communicated this to their antivirus, which at the time didn't detect this. But now, hey, they've got that cleaned up, patched, and now they can trigger on that behavior. But I do want to caution us on a couple different things here. I don't know whether you consider DLL hijacking a vulnerability, but it might not be strictly unauthorized remote access. Let me give you a super quick crash course on DLL hijacking. Really, it boils down to tricking a real program, a .exe file on Windows, into loading an arbitrary library or a file or module like a DLL, dynamic linked library, so that program now runs arbitrary code that you supply. One that you might use for a penetration test or some offensive cybersecurity work. The thing is, this typically requires some setup. We need to make changes to the victim or target computer, so it's not always used for initial access, but more often used for tradecraft for post-exploitation, to wreak further havoc once you've already compromised a target, or persistence or privilege escalation, taking a low-privilege user-level account to an administrator-level account. The way that DLL hijacking, or DLL sideloading as some might call it, how that really works is, well, a couple different techniques. Maybe there's a missing library that could be put in place. Maybe you're getting in the middle of the usual search order that Windows uses to look for different DLLs to load. Or you could replace a DLL. Maybe you modify the paths or use any other tricks. Taking advantage of the natural DLL search order that Windows uses is usually the most common, and that's what we'll see here in this example with DISM. By default, Windows will look for other DLL files in the directory that program, .exe, is loaded from. Then it will look in the System folder, see Windows System 32. If it doesn't find any DLLs there, it'll look in the 16-bit system directory, and then the Windows directory, and eventually the current directory. If it doesn't get anything there, it starts to look through your path environment variables, all the locations where you say normally programs run out of these locations. So in this video, I want to do a couple different things. Number one, we'll showcase how we can do that DLL hijacking with dism.exe. First, I want to show you that, hey, that is in the natural, native, installed, built-in, by default Windows System folder. In System 32, you can even look on your own computer, you'll find dism.exe. It is a Microsoft signed binary, and it's totally legitimate. Take a look at the details here. It is from Microsoft Windows, installed everywhere. For the second part of this video, I want to showcase some resources that you can use to find this problem in other programs or learn a little bit more about DLL hijacking. Now to play with this, I am going to open up the Windows command prompt or the Windows terminal with an admin level permissions. DISM is an interesting one that does require admin privileges, so I hit Control-Shift-Enter as I searched for it on my computer start menu. Now I could run dism.exe, and there's nothing fancy here. It just gives us the usual help information and usage syntax for other arguments, flags, switches, and parameters you could provide to the program. DISM is typically used as the deployment, image servicing, and management utility on the Windows command line. But for our case, we don't really care what it does, because we'll use this DLL hijacking technique to end up rerouting or changing the code flow, and it'll actually execute our own code for a penetration test or whatever else we'd like to do. You can also double check with the where command, usually on cmd.exe. In PowerShell, you'll need to usually include the .exe suffix for finding the absolute path or location of a program and command on your command line, but there it is. Let's actually make a directory for us to work with. In our temporary directory that we create, let's go ahead and copy that C Windows System 32 dism.exe into this directory. Now we have our own copy. And one manual tool you can use to look for these DLL hijacking opportunities is simply the sysinternal suite from Microsoft. You can use the utility here, Process Monitor, to see what DLLs are tried to be loading as the program starts up. I've got the sysinternal suite downloaded, and we can see Process Monitor in action. Granted, there's not a whole lot to really uncover here, because if we were to run dism.exe, noting I want it from the current location, I am in PowerShell, so I'll need to use the ./ here to say our current location, but that'll actually tell us It gives us an error. An error occurred while locating the DISM binaries. DISM is attempting to locate DISM core.dll. If we see that in sysinternals, we can fire up process monitor, and I'll set a filter here for our process name being dism.exe, and the lines that contain a path matching .dll. If I try and run this, we can keep that capturing, and I'll run dism.exe once again. Running from our local copy in the temp directory that we just created, of course, dism errors, just as we saw, but in process monitor we can see all of the different DLL files that it tried to load. All the ones you can see with the result of success, it was able to find in the given path. Looks like one down here though, name not found for version.dll, was actually trying to run and look for it in our current directory. So perhaps there's another DLL hijacking opportunity there. Scrolling down to the very bottom here, looks like it's looking for dism core.dll, name not found, and path not found, even when it's trying to look for in a subdirectory. So this is a perfect example of DLL hijacking, DLL sideloading, whatever you want to call it. But this, dism.exe, being a totally legitimate, real, natural, Microsoft-signed program and always installed and accessible in C Windows System 32, this could be a worthwhile trick for penetration testing. So we'll create our own custom DLL and run our own arbitrary code in just a second. But for all you penetration testers watching, let me tell you about something cool. Please let me take a second to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, PlexTrack. You know how tedious pen test reporting can be. Hours of copying and pasting, organizing data from multiple sources, formatting findings, it's exhausting. And the worst part, every minute spent reporting is a minute you're not hacking. There is a better way. Meet PlexTrack. With PlexTrack, you can analyze your attack surface, aggregate all pen test and vulnerability scan data in one place, use context-based scoring to prioritize risk, leverage artificial intelligence to slash reporting time, lean on collaborative Google Doc-like features for faster quality assurance reviews, and use out-of-the-box integrations with ticketing systems like Jira to send high-impact findings for remediation. So, what does this all mean for you? Well, you can cut pen test reporting time by 75%, collaborate seamlessly with teams and stakeholders, see your findings actually get addressed fast, and show measurable risk reduction. Charles Snyder, Director of Cybersecurity at CAI, said PlexTrack is foundational for our ongoing security and risk management. PlexTrack isn't just another tool. It's the difference between drowning in reports and actually having time to hack. Use my link below to learn more and book your own personalized demo. Spend less time reporting and more time hacking. Huge thanks to PlexTrack for sponsoring this video. Alright, now since we know that DISM in our current directory will try to load and run a DISM core.dll in our current directory, next we just have to create that DLL. So I will open up a text editor and I'll be using Sublime Text just to put together some simple C code to create a DLL that just does a simple message box for now. Let me save this in that directory as a simple hello.c, and we can start with our usual include statement to make sure we're including the Windows header file. From there, we'll add the usual boilerplate DLL startup function, should be bool API entry DLL main. And inside our parentheses, just some of that code, we put together a H module variable and type there. There's usually a D word with a UL reason for call, I think. And then I believe it is at the end an LP void, LP reserved is kind of what we usually see that argument. So a lot of nonsense there, but with that boilerplate, you typically see a switch statement for the reason for call. And then inside a block there, you'll have different cases for whatever you might end up deciding to check against. Usually you have DLL process underscore attach through there alongside the process detach. And then you do the very same for different threads. Good enough. Now in that case, we don't need to do anything with the others. Really, the one that we're most interested in is when a process attaches or ends up loading our DLL. But let's put some break statements in there appropriately so we don't fall through our switch case statement. And then we'll use the Win32 API function to simply pop a message box. I think that first argument is like the window handle. I might be wrong there, but no, we'll make it whatever it should be. Then the title, we can just say hello or whatever. We can make it cool, hacker friendly. Let's say pwned and pwned as the text of the button, the box there. For our button, we'll actually use the constant MB message box OK and just an MB icon information. Yep. Okay, and then at the very end of that function, we'll just return true to say we are done with that program. I think that's good. Just a little message box for pwned. Now, I want to open up the developer tools because I do have Visual Studio installed. Let's go open up the developer command prompt, and I should be able to then, once I change directory into the folder that I am in, run that CL command to compile this with C. Unless I got something wrong, I think it's just /LD and then the hello.c file. Oh, I did forget a semicolon. Classic C. That's on my message box line. Yeah, okay. Try that again, fingers crossed. There we go. Oh, I believe message box needs to be included with, what is it, user lib at the end there? user32.lib, I think. Okay, cool. Now in our directory, if I dir, we do have hello.dll. So just for testing, we should be able to see us invoking this with run dll32, right? Hello.dll, and then does it need an argument? It might. It might need to specify like the ordinal one or the export one. There we go. Hey, pwned. Now the real magic happens once we go back to our original PowerShell session. So I closed out of the developer prompt, but if I were to move our hello.dll to dism core.dll, obviously now when trying to run our dism.exe, it will, oh, that needs to be compiled with 64-bit. So x64 native tools command prompt. And now let's try to compile that. Hop into that directory, cl/ld on our hello.c and include user32.lib. Okay, better. All right, hop back to PowerShell. Let's move the hello.dll to dismcore.dll and let's try to run dism again. Hey, pwned! And then dism will die, right? An error occurred while loading DISM. The dism tool may be corrupt. Try reinstalling. But no, we had our DLL hijacking take place. Quick check. What if we were to change dism core DLL to that version.dll that we saw previously? Will that do the very same? Guess not. Actually, it doesn't output anything or error. Maybe that's probably going to take some other exported functions that it might need if it uses any of those. Now to really set off some fireworks, let's try to get a reverse shell connection. So over in my Kali Linux virtual machine, I'll actually take a look at my current IP address, just locally in my local area network. But with that, we can start to listen with netcat on quad 999, port 999, quad 9, right? Now back over on Windows, I'm just going to paste in some quick and easy reverse shell code that we could track down online, and we'll change the IP address to what we saw, 192.168.111.179 on port quad 9, and with that we could compile this, I believe, with just the tacl ws2_32 to include the winsock library and the functions that are used there. This will open command prompt and should give us a quick little demo. They compiled this with GCC, but I think we can do it just as easily with CL. Let's try to compile once again. Now let's put these side by side, try to move our hello DLL to dism core once again, run this, and oh, I think the version.dll is still getting in the way. Then with our hello DLL now copied to dismcore.dll, trying to run this with the reverse shell payload gets us a reverse shell. Excellent. Okay, and then we have code execution on that host. But remember, you had to make changes to the target. You're using an already compromised dism.exe program and then creating your own dismcore.dll. So this is usually used more for persistence or post-exploitation. Now, some of the resources that I wanted to show you so you could learn a little bit more about these DLL hijacking opportunities. This is an awesome resource online at hijacklibs.net, where it is sort of like lolbins or living off the land binaries or scripts. It's just a catalog and archive of all the opportunities with known DLLs on a Windows system that could be used and abused for DLL hijacking. At the very top here, we could search for DISM, and there are a couple entries for dismcore.dll, noting it works exactly with dism.exe and others that we've seen. Clicking into the entry here, you can see all the other information and a lot of folks that have shared some good detail here, including a little detection rule, sample sigma rule to find processes that load this DLL located in a folder that's not one of the expected locations, like System32. There's a good little FAQ, frequently asked questions here, and these are all things that are worth noting. But again, I just want to acknowledge this has been around for a little bit. I think this was last updated over 2 years ago, and big shout out to Vitze for all his incredible research and this sweet resource, hijacklibs.net. There's a lot of really cool stuff to look through. Would suggest taking a look if you haven't heard of it before. And some other neat things I wanted to put on your radar. These are slides from a previous presentation that I had done with Huntress, my day job. This was a virtual event, Hack It, we did put on in 2022. So while we had this section on DLL hijacking, we covered some automated tooling, like you saw us open up Process Monitor with sysinternals just a bit ago, but some things try to streamline that process and find or look for DLL hijacking opportunities. To note, though, there are a lot of handful of real-world case studies with DLL hijacking in legitimate software. We included a couple samples here. This was, I think, Itarian RMM. Yep, you'll see that in LOL RMMs just as well for other sweet resources. Cisco AnyConnect had this vulnerability some time ago that was a DLL hijacking opportunity, and it's fun. You can see no workarounds available until you update or get the latest version of the software. Obviously, in that core binary, that's what's going to be a problem. They discuss this, and I note for the privilege escalation opportunities, oftentimes these run as a service, which means it'll have NT authority system level privileges. So above admin, the nuance really varies. I think in this scenario, the attacker would need to have valid credentials to be able to exploit this, but that's subjective and differs from program to program, application to software, whatever binary scenario. Even got to see this with APT10, one of the advanced persistent threats. I think a China-based threat actor. They had done this with a whole lot of managed service providers, and there were some cool little graphics put together by another report. I think this is linked for PwC that showcased this some time ago, right? Old article, but you can see DLL hijacking could very well be prolific in a whole lot of different programs. And that is the gist of what I wanted to showcase in this video. And again, big shout out and thank you to the individual that had emailed me. I think this is still a very good story because he could communicate with the antivirus provider, and they added a couple new detections to be able to see, oh, dism.exe running out of a rogue or non-standard directory, unlike System32 or any natural Windows paths, and then that DLL loading when it shouldn't. But this is one opportunity out of many for some of those DLL hijacking tricks, and if you're a penetration tester, goodness, I hope this is something you can add to your bag of tricks. And hey, if you're a pen tester just as well, I know that reporting can be a little bit annoying, so please do give some love to our sponsors, PlexTrack, link in the video description. Thank you so much for watching, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.